Hello, I'm Amy Rose Herrick, and I live in the Caribbean and been a financial consultant most of my life. But that's not what we're here to talk about on my awakening. Doesn't this look lovely on the back scene? Well, that's what I get to see every day. But do you think that view changes when you find out that you have cervical cancer on a phone call during the middle of a Zoom, that you wondered why you were getting a call after a routine exam? Well, that was my reality. And that was a whole new awakening for me. You see, I'm one of those gals, and I'm going to take a moment to plug. If you don't do your annual exams, ladies, I want you to do them. I've been fine for years where you go back and say, oh, come back, see us again next year. Well, guess what? In 2023, that wasn't the answer. The answer was, you have cervical cancer. We need to get on this right away. Men, you need to go in and do your exams too. It's a couple of minutes a year. Save your life. Because you know what? It was silent. I didn't know I had cancer. I felt fine, but I wasn't fine. And if I had waited, I probably wouldn't be here doing this video for you to awakening. So that's how my world really flipped upside down. I live in the Caribbean. We don't have the cancer treatments that you do available here. We just don't have the population. I've got what, maybe 40,000 people on my island? Unfortunately, when you have a cancer diagnosis here, you need to go somewhere else for treatment. Most of us will go stateside. That's what I did. That was quite a journey in itself. First, it's accepting that you're ill and your world is going to change. My journey, it was quite a bit different there. I'm going to skip out a lot of the details that go through. I ended up in Oklahoma, which is where it had first started, where I went yearly to get all of my exams and stuff done, did some preliminary work, then ended up going to Kansas to live with a girlfriend. I had to leave my husband, my adult son behind, and my mother-in-law, who was living with me, that it took me 5 years to get her here, and she'd only been here several months, and I'm gone. I don't know when I'm coming back. They just tell me to expect to be gone for up to a year. After that phone call, which was on a Wednesday night, I had to make plans. It was late. My husband had already went to bed. I started canceling appointments, rescheduling. I started packing up my office because I knew I was leaving soon. I ended up booking tickets. That was Wednesday night. I was on a plane out of here by Saturday morning. Didn't have a lot of time to think. My doctor said, I've already got you scheduled for tests for Monday. Can you be here? She knew me. I said, I'll be there one way or the other. And I was. Going back with my girlfriend, who immediately joined me, and going to live in Kansas, I had to make decisions about where I was going to be treated, where I was going to live, because see, I lived in the Caribbean. I had to change my residence. I mean, there were so many things. Talk about an awakening. You wake up every day and you wonder what else I'm going to do, and how am I going to manage this, and getting test results back, and how bad is it, or how good is it? If good is when you have cancer. It was a crazy time. But during that time, I knew I was learning that in 2023, we're still kind of off the tail end of COVID, but I was going to need to accept that the course of treatment that I was going to have after I did quite a bit of research and settled on, I was going to have internal radiation, which is called brachytherapy, which is incredible. I was going to have external radiation, which meant I got tattoos for the first time in my life. That was a surprise. And I was also going to have chemotherapy all at the same time over a period of weeks. They told me that my immune system was going to crash and that I needed to understand that I would be out into isolation a lot. This also meant that while I was stateside, I was going to be going into the winter too. You know, I'm used to living in the Caribbean. I don't do the winter anymore. So it was an awakening that the life that I thought I had and that I knew was gone. My job now became being a survivor. I was willing to do that. I was willing to pay the price. In my case, I wasn't a good candidate for surgery, so I didn't end up having surgery too, like some women would. But I found out afterwards they still would have had to do probably the radiation and chemo anyway. So I missed surgery. I don't think that was a bad thing for me. Everybody needs to do their own research on what's best for you. Early on in this, my girlfriend had mentioned to me, she said, you've been wanting to write that book series for years and you've never had time because I've authored, collaborative works and I've also put a few books out on my own. And I said, that's right. Because she said, you're not going to be up to being on camera. And I said, I'm not, because she's watched others go the cancer journey. I said, you're right, I'm not. So I took care of the clients that I had. I scaled back. I didn't take on any more new clients. My clients understood. I said, I'll make sure you're taken care of. I didn't tell you that I also do income taxes for my clients. This happened in May. We'd already done a bunch of extensions that we're going to be due in October, which was going to be in the middle of when I'm doing treatment and everything else. But it was going to happen. And by gosh, with God's help, we were going to do this. We did. And some days I may get up and I may only have the energy between doing the little bits I need to do with clients. Oh, I teach classes for AARP on financial literacy and financial wellness by contract. So once a month, I had to be on to do those, and I had to look as good as I could and feel as good as I could. And I was exhausted by the time that about hour and a half, 2 hour meeting was over. But bless them, they worked with me because they knew I was trying, and the audience was very gracious too. Now, in doing that, some days I can tell you I could write a couple of paragraphs. Some days I felt okay. Maybe I wrote a whole chapter or I wrote more than that. As a matter of fact, when I was going through my treatment on one of the brachytherapies, I won't go into great details other than I'm laying down, I'm immobilized, I'm awake during part of that, and I was editing books. I was laying on my back, holding it up, editing books and editing copy and stuff while I laid there to keep my mind on something else. We went through the treatment. I waited a little while. I just kept doing more books. I did the editing. I had a couple of VAs helping me. We decided on the covers. I learned all kinds of things. I decided I didn't want to just write a book and put it up on Amazon. I wanted my books, my vision. I wanted to have my books in libraries and universities. And to do that, I had to do it publisher quality because I looked at the self-publishers and I'd done some books before. I just didn't want to go that route. I knew it wasn't the right one for me, and especially with the quantity. I ended up writing 13 books that are on financial and also relationship titles. These are not romance novels. These are finances and relationships. Very, very well received, excellent ratings and reviews that I have on those. We ended up releasing them all at one time when I got the all clear. Amy, you're good. They even used the word cured. We liked that very much, which was crazy. The launch, that's a different story. I was able to be back in St. Croix by then, and there were other things that happened. But my awakening was that sometimes you have an inner strength you never knew you had. I had God's help. I had a great friend that supported me the entire way. And with that, I was able to do something with a cancer diagnosis that was devastating. And it allowed me to be an inspiration to others because I told people, I'm writing my book series. The ones at the hospital and the people I'm working with, I'm writing my book series. When you get one done, will you let me see it? Can I look at it? I said, yes, I'd like some suggestions. I had people that were rooting for me. What you don't know is that I have 8 other titles that I have not released yet because things didn't go exactly the way we'd expected, but I'm not a quitter, obviously. We're still working on getting those taken care of. So my awakening was that a cancer diagnosis doesn't have to be the end of your life. It can be the beginning of an entirely new life. And in my case, it was to be a prolific author and to learn what it took to get books. I've learned all I need to know at this point about many, many things where my books are publisher quality, and you probably can't tell when you look at some of them that I didn't have a publisher. That was the intent. So my awakening, cancer is not the end of your life. Cancer, if you choose to, can make it the beginning of an entirely new life you didn't have time for before.